Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Joined the League of Villains. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Ryuku and Black Baron vs Combustion and Dakijin. The fight appeared to be in the hero's favor. Despite Combustion and Dakijin using their quirks to fight back, Ryuku was too durable in her dragon form. Not to mention strong. They had been struck once or twice by the dragon, and it hadn't been peaceful. They were left with bruises and cuts with blood leaking out of them in certain places. As for why they hadn't been struck more times, it was because they were careful enough to dodge each of her attacks. Ryuku's form may have granted her enhanced attributes such as strength and durability, but speed wasn't one of them as they could keep up with her. Black Baron was trickier. He would construct various weapons from the dark matter, such as a hammer, swords, and knives, and use them in various ways to attack them, as well as put up barriers to protect himself from their attacks. Catching him off guard was not an easy task. Any suggestions? Combustion asked. I'm willing to try anything at this point. Beat the crap out of them, Dakijin vehemently suggested. Anything better perhaps? Combustion rolled his eyes. He knew his teammate loved to fight, but at times it could blind him to reason. They needed a strategy if they wanted to win. Ryuku had high defenses, and Baron was an elusive opponent. There had to be some way to catch them off guard. The only way they'd do that is if they thought they'd, when Combustion's eyes widened. That's it. Hey, I've got a plan, he said. Better be a good one, Dakijin muttered. It is, he retorted. We need to take them both down separately, and when they let their guards down. The only way to do that is to make them think they've won. For the time being, fight Ryuku while I deal with Baron. What kind of a dumbest plan is that? Dakijin asked disbelievingly. One that will succeed, Combustion responded. Trust me on this one. Oh, and one more thing. Get angry, and I mean really angry. Angrier than you've ever been in your life. It's how you will defeat Ryuku. Dakijin didn't quite believe his comrade, but he didn't argue with him either. Combustion had never led him wrong before, so why was now any different? Fine, we'll do it your way, he said. Now let's beat the crap out of these hero bastards. Nothing more was said between the two of them as they focused on their separate targets. Baron was a little amused by their change in tactic but otherwise unimpressed. He wanted this fight over and done with as he did the raid. While he had agreed to take part, he wanted to get back to his beloved wife and daughter as soon as possible. Kenya and Rachel were bound to be worrying about him right now, and he wanted to get rid of that. Combustion fired an explosion at his foe, who quickly brought up a dark barrier to defend himself. When they were close enough, Combustion tried to use his quirk again by absorbing the heat particles from the area, only for his explosion to fall short, as Baron extended dark matter like a shadow, and used tentacles to drag him back. I think this has gone on long enough, don't you? He said coldly in Russian. Using his quirk, he trapped Combustion in the dark matter in an attempt to suffocate him unconscious. This would take a few minutes, but he could wait that long as he was confident Ryuku would handle the other one. However, what happened next surprised him in ways that had never happened before. Despite being encased in dark matter, Combustion still retained the heat particles he had absorbed. Using them, he initiated a large explosion from all over his body. Black Baron struggled to contain the explosion, but the strength of it made it difficult. Eventually, the detonation stopped, and the villain stopped moving altogether. Removing his quirk, he saw that the villain was alive but incredibly weakened. No longer seeing him as a threat, he moved to help his ally, only to be met with a raging inferno. When Combustion started fighting with Black Baron, Dakijin attempted to take on Ryuku all by himself. While it wasn't easy, he managed to keep up and dodge all her attacks, yet he restrained himself from using his quirk until the right moment. What is he up to? The Dragoon hero wondered. Is he trying to wear me down? What Ryuku didn't know was that he did have a way to wear her down, it just wasn't through physical means. Throughout their fight, Dakijin thought a lot about his past. How he joined Hades, the hardships he'd endured, the humiliation, the betrayals, all the people that pissed him off, Deku and Shida included, and just about everything that pissed him off in this damn world. And he used it all as fuel. His fury became the very petrol he needed to power his quirk. When he was certain he had reached his highest point, he dashed towards Ryuku with a blank expression across his face. The hero tried to swipe at him, but he was quick enough to dodge and get under her huge body. Standing straight, he stomped his foot down, and screamed. And in that moment, a blazing hell was unleashed. The fire consumed the hero's body as she did nothing but scream in agony. Most people didn't know this, but Dakijin's flames could be just as hot as Endeavor's, if not hotter when he needed them to be. And Ryuku felt the full force of it. Not only did she feel the unbearable pain of it all, but the intense heat was starting to drain her body, as she slowly began to lose consciousness. Black Baron couldn't believe what he was seeing or feeling for that matter. It was as though he had stepped into hell itself. He didn't dare approach though, as he wasn't sure he'd be able to help. Unbeknownst to him, the fire Dakujin was giving off was sending out a lot of heat particles. Another thing he didn't know was that Combustion, while not immune to explosions in general, though he did have a bit of resistance, was completely immune to his own. With his opponent distracted, Combustion rose to deliver the final blow. Dashing at his opponent, he turned and delivered a flying sidekick, where at the moment of impact, a massive explosion occurred that sent the demonic protector of Kaizen soaring across the air into his ally. The impact effectively knocked both him and Ryuku out. Dakujin's flames subsided, and Combustion collapsed to the ground panting. He took out a small blue square-shaped pill and chewed down on it before swallowing. The pill itself was a hydration pill created by Rika to help him deal with the fallout from his quirk, which left him severely dehydrated and tired from extensive use. Taking the pill was the equivalent of drinking 5 liters of water, though you didn't feel full afterwards. Damn. Dakujin swore as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. That was quite a workout. Indeed, it was my angry friend, Combustion agreed. Indeed, it was. Examining the heroes, one could see that Ryuku had serious burns, as did Black Baron, but other than that they would live. Surprisingly enough, the flames hadn't burned away their clothes, not that he was complaining. They were charred but otherwise wearable. I doubt they'll be up for a while, Combustion stated. Let's move on, shall we? The redhead smirked and followed, leaving the defeated heroes behind. Crust and Gunhead vs Gale. Bang. 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 Gale continued to fire against his opponents, only to be blocked by Crust's shields. When his body reverted to normal, Gunhead made his move and started firing claw-like bullets made from keratin. Gale wasted no time in dodging by cartwheeling to the left. Well, this is not going well, the lone villain thought. Those shields he is producing block all my bullets, not to mention they can cut through anything. He had studied up on the heroes of Japan in thorough detail. Among those he deemed a threat, Crust was one of them due to the defensive and offensive capabilities of his quirk, mostly defensive though. Gunhead's quirk is impressive, but it's his affinity for martial arts that make him a genuine threat. What to do. Of course, he knew what he had to do, he was just annoyed he had to do it. His quirk gun state allowed him to transform his body into any gun he desired. The ammunition was something he could produce as a bonus. However, the more bullets he used, the more his energy depleted, hence why he preferred to finish his fights quickly. What most people didn't know about his quirk was that while he could produce bullets, he could produce other ammunition. Not only that, but he could also alter the properties of the gun he was using, such as adding extra firing equipment. Gunhead, we need to hurry up and finish this. Crust yelled. On it. The battle hero replied. He prepared to fire again at the villain, only to be surprised when instead of dodging, Gale ran straight at the bullets. Dropping on his knees and skidding forward with his upper body bending backwards, he dodged the bullets and continued running forward. What the? Gunhead thought, bewildered. Did he realize shooting was pointless and is now trying to take us on in a straight-up match? Something about this doesn't feel right, the shield hero mused. Gale could tell they were baffled by his sudden change in strategy, which worked well for him. As he came closer, he transformed his right leg into an M4 carbine assault rifle with an M203 grenade launcher, and fired off a round. The explosion temporarily blinded the heroes as he soared over their heads. When he was in perfect range of them, he fired again, with Crust barely managing to put up a shield in time. Blocking a grenade is not the same as blocking a bullet. When Gale's shot landed, the explosion sent the two heroes crashing backwards on the ground. As they stood up, it was evident they were shaky. Time to end this, I guess, Gale decided. Holding out his left arm, he transformed it into an RPG-7, much to the heroes' horror. If a small explosion like that wouldn't take them out, then a much larger one was sure to do the trick. Without further delay, the gun villain fired at his targets, while Crust put up the largest and strongest shield he could muster. Boom. The explosion from the impact was huge and went behind the heroes to other police and heroes fighting with Hades members. The result was several on both sides dying, in addition to being severely injured. Gale felt somewhat bad about hating his allies, but rationalized that these things happened in war, as he had learned firsthand from his time as a soldier. When the smoke cleared, Gale was quite surprised to see both Crust and Gunhead alive. They were heavily burned and unconscious, but otherwise alive. Crust deserved the most praise. Being able to block an impact like that come out alive displayed not only a high level of perseverance but skill as well. The doctors are gonna have their hands full with these ones, Gale admitted. Oh well, can't be helped. These happen in war after all. Wild Pussycats, Mandalay, Tiger, and Pixie Bob, and John Doe vs Atlas. Your feline fantasies are here. Say meow. Mandalay introduced. Allow them to lend a helping paw. John Doe added. He wasn't really part of the group, but they asked him to fill in on the introduction. Something about a teammate of their not being available because of personal reasons. He didn't really understand it, but it was fun to do. We're champions serving up justice with our tails. Tiger said intimidatingly. Perfectly cute and cat-like heroes. Pixie Bob beamed. They're the wild Pussycats. They all finished in the pose. Atlas stared at them with a neutral expression. A pleasure. I'm Atlas, a member of the elemental assassins here at Hades, he responded nonchalantly. I must say you are not what I was expecting. You do not look that old for your age. This one look about 17. He pointed towards Pixie Bob, whose face lit up. He then pointed at John Doe. I don't know who he is. I don't think he's part of your group though, I mean he's not wearing a cat costume. The heroes were surprised at how polite Atlas was. They remembered Deku's report which described him as one of the nicer members. Apparently, he wasn't kidding. Well, I know it is unlikely, you'll actually do it, Atlas sighed. I will ask to turn around and walk away from this place, from this mission of yours if you prefer. Now that surprised him. Was he afraid to face them all at once, or was he concerned about them? He sounded sincere, though it could be a deception. If you know then why ask? Tiger interrogated. Because you'll lose, Atlas answered bluntly. I don't know what Deku told you about me or anyone else here for that matter, but I'm certain he told you we're not your average opponents. That may be true, but that's no reason to run away, Mandalay said. Not when people are counting on us to rescue them. So, give up on trying to persuade us, Pixie Bob challenged. Our minds are made up. Atlas inwardly sighed. Their intent was so pure, it was almost saddening, almost. He knew it would come to this, that didn't mean he wanted it though. It just meant he would have to defeat them. Less talking, more ass kicking, John informed them in English. It wasn't as if he was bad at Japanese, however, he was still learning the language, and could sometimes struggle with a few words. Well, no way around it then, Atlas sighed. Just remember, I offered. While the others took up fighting stances, he retained the same standing position. God, I wish we had some music to play for this, John lamented. They divided themselves up and attacked separately. Tiger was first to strike. He ran at Atlas at max speed, and brought out his claws in an attempt to take him out early. John had a similar idea as he ran at him from behind with a stun baton enhanced by his quirk. As they neared him, Mandalay used her telepathy on him and screamed in his head. Much to her surprise, Atlas wasn't the least bit affected by her mental barrage. He stomped his left foot on the ground, and a second later 2 earth pillars shot out from the ground towards the 2 opponents running at him. Tiger just barely managed to twist his body out of the way as he kept up his charge, while John was less lucky and was hit hard in the stomach that sent him crashing against a wall, knocking him temporarily out of the fight. As Tiger neared, Atlas calculated where he would step and erected a large pillar that squashed Tiger against the ceiling. Admittedly, not a bad plan, but not one that would work on me, Atlas spoke calmly. He turned to a glaring Mandalay. You have a loud voice, I'll you that. But along with my siblings I've been trained to resist mental attacks. So really, don't waste your thoughts. Damn it, Mandalay internally swore. I thought that would work. Time to change tactics. Activating her quirk, she spoke with her teammates. Everyone, I hope you're alright. Things are much more complicated than we thought. My psychic attacks don't work on him. We need to come up with a plan. Pixie Bob gave her teammate a look but said nothing. It was time for her to make her own attack. Summoning the earth, Pixie Bob sent several waves towards the villain. In addition, she used her special move to summon several earth golems beasts to assault Atlas. Bearing their fangs, they charged at him with the intent to incapacitate. However, she was shocked when Atlas raised his hands, and suddenly all her attacks stopped. With all her willpower, Pixie Bob tried to force them to move, but to no avail. My siblings and I were trained from birth in the use of our element, and have mastered every aspect of it, even going so far as to control the quirks of our enemies, Atlas explained, his voice neither sarcastic nor condescending. I control the earth in all her forms, Pixie Bob. From pebbles to boulders, from sand to mud, you name it, I control it. You are powerful, I won't deny that. But compared to us, you and other elemental users are mortals, whereas we are gods. Mandalay did not like that description, mainly because from his demeanor, he wasn't lying. Tiger broke out of his little prison and began to attack Atlas again by swiping and kicking at him. Mandalay and Pixie Bob joined in this time by assisting each other in a coordinated attack against Atlas, who miraculously dodged each one, even the attacks he couldn't see. John recovered and joined in the attack by enhancing the others while attacking Atlas with 2 fixed blade knives. While they couldn't hit him, he could certainly hit them by bringing up different layers of rock to hit them aside. At one point, John attempted to stab him from behind, but he spun aside while a wall of earth smashed face first into the hero and drove him into a wall, once again knocking him out. None of them could understand it. He couldn't be that good, and yet he was. I'd say this fight has gone on long enough, Atlas concluded. As you can see, you're no match for me. This is why I offer you the chance to leave once more. Abandon your mission and return home before you become slaves of this place. As if we would ever succumb to demands of a villain like you, Tiger barked. Atlas groaned. This was getting annoying. Couldn't they see that they wouldn't win? Do none of you has families you need to get back to, relatives that are anxiously waiting for your return? He inquired. Mandalay froze upon hearing that question. The image of a small boy, no older than 5 with spiky black hair and a red cap came to mind. Her cousin Kota, her only living relative whom she held custody of. He was at home waiting for her. He was at home still recovering from the trauma of the training camp. Of all the things she expected from the camp, a villain attack was not one, especially with her cousins, Kota's parents, Killer presents. The poor boy had nearly been killed by that monster, and was still recovering from the mental shock of it all as he was with his parents. Could she really afford to leave him alone as well? Of course, we do, Pixie Bob answered honestly. A lot of heroes do. But guess what, so do most of the people you kidnapped. Atlas didn't need to be told that. Which is why we'll keep fighting, for them, and for others just like them. Because even if it's hopeless, that's what heroes do. Help others. Atlas exhaled deeply. He had heard that response before, and as noble as it sounded, it always ended the same way. Atlas's eyes briefly wandered over to Mandalay, and noticed how unsure she was about the whole situation. That was unusual. Could she have perhaps been considering his offer? Maybe she had someone at home she desperately needed to return to. Atlas snapped back to reality the second he felt John Doe moving. From the vibrations, he could tell the man was reaching for something. At the sound of a click, Atlas instantly brought up an earth wall to shield him from whatever was being fired at him. Stomping his left foot down again, John Doe was launched into the air by a pillar until it stopped, and he crashed into the ceiling and fell back down onto the spike and to the ground, knocking him out. Deciding he'd had enough of this fight, Atlas repeated his final attack from the mall, and unleashed a wave of earth against the heroes who were too slow. The heroes were pinned against the wall, but Atlas wasn't finished yet. He wanted to make sure they stayed down for good. Controlling the earth around them, he forged cuffs for their hands, feet, and waists. Holding out both his hands, he tightened them both as fists, and as he did, the restraints tightened. The strain it put on the heroes' bodies caused them to slowly descend into the realm of sleep. Kota, Mandalay murmured, attracting Atlas's attention. Kota. Atlas raised an eyebrow. So, she did have someone she cared about. A son perhaps, or husband maybe. In that case. Best well, Catgirl. You will be home to him soon, Atlas assured her. Very soon. Atlas liked to consider himself one of the nicer, more reasonable members of Hades, as did many others. He didn't particularly like his job where he had to capture people, but he did it anyway. Why? Well, he valued life more than others, he also valued his own. That said, he would often let people go when he could. Like now. Blitz Strike vs Speed Demon. Speed Demon was moving as fast as he could to avoid the hero he was fighting with. The reason being Blitz Strike creating some sort of chain with him attached to it, and traveling along with it as an electrical current until she reached and shocked the life out of him. Not an appealing experience, he had to admit, which is why he was running. Ugh, I'd rather be training with Tenya. Hey, I internally whined. He's come so far already, and there's still more to go. Not to mention his wicked new hairdo. I swear, combine that with the costume design Sheeta's been working on, and no one's gonna recognize him. Tenya was currently with Sheeta at the development studio, which was sealed off entirely like the rest of the building, save for when Shiro invited All Might in. Boy, that was going to be a fight worth watching. The sound of sizzling came close to him, and the speed villain sped up. He wondered if he just had to continue running for Blitz Strike to tire out and give up, though he seriously doubted it. The woman was an underground hero like Eraserhead, though far more dangerous and destructive. She attacked her targets with precision and efficiency, and often left her targets in a disabled and, occasionally, dead state. She was often employed by the police to deal with more dangerous targets that other heroes couldn't handle. He understood. In this life, someone like that was always necessary. Unfortunately, this now applied to him. Well, no way around it, he decided as he turned to face the electrical storm heading his way. Rotating both his arms at super speed, 2 small tornadoes formed and shot at the living lightning chain. Because she was heading straight for Speed Demon, Blitz Strike was unable to dodge and as a result, slowed down in her assault. For the moment it seemed to be working. The hero was barely able to move as she struggled to reach the speedster. This was of course part of his plan to wear her out. Blitz Strike's quirk, while extremely powerful, had a fatal weakness. The user had to possess incredible amounts of physical stamina and strength for it to work, and the more she used it, the more tired she became. And worst of all, once she was in attack mode she couldn't stop until she'd hit her target, which worked out just fine for him. Blitz Strike increased the power output of her attack, and slowly began to break through the tornadoes. Speed Demon wasn't entirely worried, it was all part of the plan. He increased the power of his tornadoes as she increased her own power, and in the process gradually wore herself out. When she was within inches of him, Speed Demon, for a split second, broke the tornado, and she electrocuted him at full force. Ugh. The speedster screamed as the electricity coursed through his body. Yet, despite the pain, he persevered and managed to remain conscious. Next came the tricky part of the plan. Blitz Strike collapsed on the ground, panting heavily. She had not expected to use that much of her power and so soon. She needed to recharge, and soon. Good thing she brought a couple of energy bars with her. As she reached towards her pocket, surprise overtook her when she heard a voice. Damn girl, Speed Demon muttered. You really know how to show a guy a good time. I'm impressed. Blitzstrike stared at Speed Demon in disbelief. How was he still conscious? For that matter, how was he still moving? Whenever she used her quirk on someone, they were normally left physically incapacitated. Ah, that fight was amazing. I really thought we were connecting there, you know, like there were sparks flying between us. Couldn't you feel it? Speed Demon beamed. Blitzstrike stared at him with a cold yet dumbstruck expression. Speed Demon flinched a little under her gaze. Too soon? He muttered. Too weird. Both. Blitzstrike responded bluntly. How are you even still moving? I'm more durable than I look, he joked. What do you think? Blitzstrike stared at him, her eyes cold and unsympathetic. I think my quirk may have given you brain damage, she replied honestly. Either that or you were born this way, which is even sadder. Speed Demon looked completely offended by that remark. Excuse me. What's wrong with my personality? He protested. Seriously, it's hard not to find what isn't wrong with it, Blitzstrike deadpanned. Well, I'll have you know that a lot of people like me this way, the speedster countered. Only because they feel sorry for you, the hero shot back. The exchange of insults between them was not one I enjoyed but deemed necessary, nonetheless. His quirk granted him super speed in several areas, healing included. While they were talking, he had been recovering from the shock Blitzstrike gave him. Surprisingly, it wasn't too hard to distract her. Whatever about him she found annoying, it worked well in his favor. While he exploited it and kept her talking, he was healing up nice and fine. By the way, not that I actually care, but what's up with your name? Blitzstrike asked incredulously. Who comes up with stupid names like Speed Demon? It wasn't me, he assured her. Shiro thought it would be best if I had a name that sounded more villainous, so everyone else would take me seriously. I wasn't happy about it, but I didn't want to argue either. I'll remember that when you're in jail, the hero muttered. Speed Demon inwardly laughed. She thought he was going to jail. How cute. Unfortunately for her, he was fully healed now, meaning their little dance was coming to an end. Wow, you are so naive, Blitzstrike looked at him confused. So sorry, but I have interest in being locked up. Prison just doesn't suit me, if you know what I mean. Before she could even muster a reply, Blitzstrike found herself against the wall with Speed Demon pinning her down. He then proceeded to rapidly punch her in both the face and stomach, which was amplified by his speed. The underground hero couldn't even retaliate against the onslaught, as she was too worn out from using her quirk. So that's what his plan was, she realized. Shit. Now, who's the idiot? Those were her last thoughts as Speed Demon's final punch knocked her to the ground unconscious. Ugh, finally, hey, I groaned. I did not like fighting her. Oh well, can't be helped. A guy's gotta do what a guy's gotta do. Sketch vs Blade. Sketch drew a tiger that immediately went after Blade, only for him to turn his right leg into a sword and cut it down in one strike. The tiger immediately disappeared into paper. Well, this could be going better, Sketch muttered as another of his beautiful creations fell to Blade's, Blade. I don't know about that. It's going pretty well for me, Blade taunted. Yes, for you, not me. Sketch snapped. It could be going better for me, but instead it's you after slicing apart another of my masterpieces. Blade rolled his eyes. From the beginning, he found his opponent annoying, and that continued to increase as they fought. Sketch was an unusual opponent. His quick art to life brought about various creatures for Blade, ranging from animals to insects, as well as human beings. I couldn't give two shits about your stupid drawings, Blade barked. We're fighting, not drawing stickmen. Stickmen actually aren't that bad, they're a good way for beginners to start off before developing their artistic style, Sketch interrupted. Shut up, Blade roared. This guy was seriously pissing him off. It was bad enough he lost to Deku and his friends, and got a beating from Nico. Now he had to deal with this guy. It was infuriating. Bad luck seemed to be following him around a lot lately. Whatever. The sooner I kill this guy, the happier I'll be, Blade decided. Despite Shiro's orders, Blade had no intention of capturing anyone today. He was in too much of a murderous mood to do that. Activating his quirk, Blade transformed every part of his body into a type of sword. His nails and teeth became knives. Katanas came from his elbows and knees while down to his feet became swords from medieval times. The act was meant to intimidate his opponent. This is why he was shocked when this happened. Sketch's face lit up like an angel and squealed like an adoring fangirl. Ah, hold that posse. He ordered as he took out his sketchbook and immediately started drawing. Please hold that posse. What the fuck? Blade responded, completely bewildered by Sketch's behavior. I'm sorry, it's just that when I see a beautiful work of art like that, I can't help but admire it, Sketch beamed. Of course, that includes drawing them from memory as well. Beautiful work of art. Blade honestly couldn't think of one moment in his life where anyone had said that about him. It was really weird. Are you shitting me? Blade snapped. We're in the middle of a life or death situation and you want to spend that time drawing. It's called multitasking. You should try it sometime, Sketch advised him. Blade, however, had had enough. Reverting his body back to normal, he charged his sketch with two katanas emerging from his elbows on different sides. Leaping up into the air, he spun, hoping to slice the top half of Sketch off. Sketch, with an unreadable expression, was drawing something before activating his quirk. Blade came face to face with an iron wall that he barely managed to slash into. "Hey, Blade," Sketch called, his voice now calm. "How well versed are you in popular culture from centuries ago, back before quirks existed?" Blade furrowed his eyebrows in confusion. What did that have to do with anything? He wasn't versed at all, mainly because he wasn't interested. "I'm going to take it not that much." "Well, that's alright," Sketch assured him. "It's not for everyone. Me, on the other hand, I love it. Movies, books, comics, manga, and anime that existed long before we were born, before quirks even existed, and remain popular to this day. Some of my favorites include Naruto, Attack on Titan, Harry Potter, Batman, and The Hunger Games. Ever hear of them? Perhaps not if you're not a fan like I am. You should though, they're amazing. So many unique designs and creative ideas to choose from, they inspire me to draw such beauty like my own." The atmosphere had suddenly changed. It was darker, tenser. And Sketch, his tone of voice indicated that he was finally getting serious. The cold look in his eye only confirmed it. Blade was a little unnerved by it all. It was as if his personality had done a complete 180 turn. Let's start with The Hunger Games, a novel series about a young girl in a dystopian world who takes part in a dangerous fight to the death to protect her sister. She faces many trials throughout these games, one just so happening to be a Jabberjay, a special of mutated bird used to mimic human voices and spy on others. In one such event, it was used to torture her by mimicking the voice of her beloved sister, Sketch explained in extraordinary detail. "I love the idea. It was one of the cruelest ways to assault your enemies. However, I also thought a bit more could be added to them, like this." Flipping to a page in his sketchbook of several birds and words beside them, he activated his quirk and brought them to life. Several black birds with white crests appeared flying around Blade. "Well, Blade, what do you think?" Sketch asked in a cruel voice. No sooner had he said did the Jabberjays start to mimic his voice and words. However, they were high-pitched sonic screams that forced Blade to his knees, as he covered his ears while dealing with the pain. Sketch looked on with a cruel expression. He thought it was a good idea to give them sonic screech powers to inflict more damage. Sketch turned through his book again to a page that brought a serious expression to his face. "Now this one is from the Harry Potter series, specifically Book 3, he explained. A demonic entity that feeds off happiness and forces others to live through their darkest fears. Don't worry, it can't suck out your soul, I made sure of that." Activating his quirk again, the Dementor came to life and began to circle Blade, who felt the entire air turn ice cold. It wasn't just that though, he began to slowly recall his worst memories ranging from scary to traumatic. He wanted the horrible torture to end. The only reason he wasn't praying was that he couldn't remove his hands from his ears, and because he doubted anyone would answer. He had been taught from birth to only rely on himself to survive, and he wasn't about to change that now. Seeing that his target was immobilized, Sketch waited for him to fall unconscious. He didn't particularly take any pleasure in watching his opponent suffer, but he wasn't willing to take any chances against a member of Hades. Sometimes the most brutal methods were the most effective, and of course, sometimes they weren't. He was aiming for the latter. Blade could barely think as the horrific sensations coursed through his body. At this rate, he wasn't going to last much longer. Yet, despite all the torture he was going through, he refused to succumb. He willed himself to stay awake and fight back. It wasn't easy though. Those reverberated sonic voices were damaging his body and his ears, while that shitty floating bathrobe was making him relive his worst nightmares. If he wanted to get out of this and kill that son of a bitch, he would have to do something he rarely did and swallow his pride. Most people didn't know this, but Blade usually wore support gear made and designed personally by Sheeta. The gear itself was a form of armor that could enhance all his abilities, physical, defensive and quirk. Now one might be asking why he didn't normally use it in the field. He would unstoppable if he did. Well, the reason was simple. Pride. Pride was why he didn't use it. He couldn't accept that, or he wouldn't put his trust into something a quirkless person made. It was pretty stupid considering how successful Rika and Sheeta had been at Hades. Hell, the boy became one of the few individuals to argue one-on-one with Shiro and win. From what Blade had heard, he broke into Shiro's room just to see what his wardrobe was like. Shiro caught him and threatened to disfigure his face, leading to a serious argument between the two that went on for 2 days straight. Imagine his surprise when Sheeta came out victorious. Shiro was especially humiliated because he had lost an argument with a kid. If it had been someone like All For One it would have made sense, but a kid, it was inconceivable. Most of the people who worked for Shiro, he and Nico included, never said this out loud, but what Sheeta did earned him major respect from everyone. Which was why for the first time in his life he would put his faith in that quirkless brat. Though it would be hard to hear him, even himself, the suit would know what he wanted and when he spoke. Blade Buster activate. Code Excalibur. Blade muttered. No sooner had he uttered it did a change overtake his body. In place was a metallic black and gray jester costume that mirrored his mask. On the top right and bottom left parts there were white swords cut across diagonally. The suit had several functions intact, one of which blocked out all sound, and another of which granted shielding from mental-based attacks. Suddenly, Blade felt he could think again, and finally stood up against the shrieking abominations. Sketch was a little perturbed by his enemy's sudden change in appearance. He was even more unnerved when his creations were having no effect on him. Blade smirked on the inside. It seemed Sheeta had done something amazing after all. He would need to, silently, give him more credit after this. Alright, time to test this suit's functions, he decided. If I remember correctly, the suit enables my core to do this. Several knives immediately formed across his body. Then, like a porcupine, he shot them out at everything within range. In this case, the Jabberjays, who fell like raindrops from the sky. What the? This isn't how his quirk works. Sketch thought, confused. That suit, could it be? Next was the Dementor. Now unaffected by its wicked powers, Blade leapt up into the air with a sword emerging from his right shoe as he spiraled downwards. The end result was the Dementor being cut in half and returning to the paper it once was. It was then that Blade turned his attention back to the hero, who was glaring at him for destroying his works of art. Sketch was done playing around. Let's go back in time, shall we? He offered as he flipped to another of his drawings. Activating his quirk, a group of samurai came to life fully dressed in armor with their katanas ready to strike. Blade wasn't fazed in the slightest. Charging forward he dodged the first row of swords only to collide with the next. Blade brought out two flamberges to block and deflect the attacks. He then switched to two kopushes in his legs, and did a handstand while spinning, and in the process severed the samurai's upper halves from their bodies. He then flipped up into the air and threw several knives that connected with the heads of some samurai. The remaining samurai then tried to fight him, but Blade switched to katana hands, and began to block and deflect their attacks onto one another. With just one paper enemy left, the two charged at one another before slashing. Standing in opposite directions on opposite sides with their backs to each other, the paper samurai fell, ending the threat once and for all. You're seriously starting to piss me off, Sketch growled. How many times have you destroyed my drawings now? Since it had come to this, he would have to use his special reserves. Taking out two special pages, Sketch used his quirk to bring both to life. One was a large purple hydra with 6 heads. The other was a chimera with hawk wings, the head and body of a lion, scales of a lizard, and a snake tail. Let's see how you handle some of my strongest creations, Sketch challenged. Blade, underneath his mask, wasn't impressed. The Sketch thought these would be a problem for him, then he had another thing coming. He knew about Greek mythology, having studied it briefly after encountering Cerberus. Not to mention the entire organization was named after the Lord of the Dead himself. The chimera soared at Blade, roaring. His claws came up as it prepared to strike. Blade returned the favor by speeding forward and skidding on his knees. As he came under the beast, a claymore emerged from his stomach and pierced the chimera's skin, and continued to do so as he slid through. As an extra caution, Blade embedded several small knives in the beast, including the snake head. The chimera howled in pain as it turned to nothing. The hydra roared at Blade as it moved towards him. It was a miracle he didn't laugh because the creature was moving incredibly slow. Though he supposed that was natural for something with a huge body and that many heads. What he wasn't prepared for were the 6 energy beams that came out of its mouth. Blade started running as fast as he could to avoid the beams. He appeared to be succeeding until one of the beams collided with his back and sent him crashing against the wall. Thanks to the suit, it wasn't overly painful, but it wasn't peaceful either. The 6 heads fired again on an immobile Blade who could do nothing but take it all in. The result was a large amount of dust. That cares of it, then Sketch decided. However, that certainty turned to horror when a large sword shot out of nowhere and pierced the hydra's chest and continued through its heart. I know the legend goes, cut off one head, 2 more grow back. Blade explained. If I aim for the heart though, even it won't survive. The hydra's screams were loud and agonizing, but soon ceased as it turned to nothing. Blade surprisingly wasn't looking too terrible. His suit was still in one piece, which was good. The defensive attributes were incredible. He really needed to give Sheeta more credit. Maybe he could do so later. Sketch was in a state of disbelief. He had thrown just about everything at Blade, only for it to fail. He wasn't finished yet though, he still had one last trick up his sleeve. As Blade approached him, Sketch threw 2 pages with his quirk activated. The villain tried to slash them only for them both to explode. When the smoke cleared, Blade found himself confined by multiple tight steel ropes coming from all corners of the area. What was intriguing though was that there were several strands of paper hanging. Blade found this unusual. I must admit, I never thought you would push me this far, Sketch revealed to him. No one ever has, not even during my sports festival years. You should be proud of yourself. I could say the same about you, Blade shot back. Forcing me into using the suit. You've got to be the first. Sketch was a little curious about that but didn't get the chance to learn. Now, what great pop culture is this from, might I ask? Sketch brandished a perfect smile. Why a combination of sorts? You could say what we have here is a crossover between Naruto and Attack on Titan, or rather Attack on Titan meets Shikamaru Nar. Blade rolled his eyes as he waited for the explanation. You see, in the anime Naruto, Shikamaru, after losing his sensei, faces his killer one-on-one in a life-or-death match with neither giving up. In the end, Shikamaru emerges victorious by springing a trap that leaves his enemy dangling over a pit, while with paper wrapped around him. Blade's eyes widened upon hearing those words. Since Sketch's quirk brought anything he drew to life, it meant he was literally surrounded by bombs right this second. Was he trying to kill him? Don't worry, these won't kill you, Sketch assured him. Severely injure you, yes, but kill you, no. I don't want you dead. I am a hero after all. Blade wasn't sure if he should trust that statement or not, since it really didn't mean all that much to him. Continuing on, Shikamaru blows the killer up and leaves at the bottom of a hole. Now to explain how Attack on Titan factors into this. Since we're tight on time, I'll skim over the details. It's a manga about a dystopian world where many eating giants called Titans exist, and humanity has almost been wiped out by them. In a situation, they try to capture this intelligent Titan called the female Titan. This is the equipment they used to do it, albeit with a twist. While Sketch rambled on about this, Blade contemplated his next move. He wasn't sure how durable the suit was, and he really wasn't eager to try out, but like before, he didn't have a choice. Well, here goes nothing, he thought. And they should be going off right about. Boom. Now, Sketch finished. The explosion was massive, so much that it shook the tunnels. Sketch was somewhat surprised since he hadn't expected it to be that big. Nevertheless, he was satisfied with the outcome since it meant his victory. He was extremely exhausted though. Bringing his drawings to life took a lot out of him, especially if they were settings instead of animate objects. Due to a large amount of smoke, he couldn't see anything. Not that it mattered anymore. Because at that very second, an extremely pissed off Blade came dashing out of the smoke towards Sketch. He was bleeding, burned, and his clothes were destroyed. The left side of the top half was gone, as was some of the lower, with him going barefoot and his thighs exposed. Only his underwear remained. Panicked Sketch flipped through his book, only for it to be sliced in two by Blade a second later. Then, twisting on his right foot, he delivered a powerful back kick in the form of a claymore that pierced Sketch's heart and left him hanging in the air. Sketch coughed up blood that fell on Blade, who stared at him coldly. Then, without warning, he threw Sketch to the wall, who surprisingly managed to stay sitting up despite his wounds. He stared at Blade in the form he was in, his design, and his expression. It was all so beautiful. A work of art. He coughed up blood again. He had lost, failed, been killed. But he wasn't angry, he held no regrets. He did his duty as a hero and lived his life as he liked. He was only sad that he would never see Ryuku again. Even if she didn't return his feelings, he still valued her as a friend. Regarding Blade, he didn't hate him. He didn't like what he did, but still found a way to respect him, nonetheless. What a unique piece of art you are. I have to draw you, Sketch said weakly. Blade was a little surprised at his attitude. Even after everything that just happened, he still wanted to draw and even praised him. In the rarest moments, where he showed any form of kindness, he picked up the sketchbook and pen, and brought it to Sketch, who was overjoyed. Thank you, he said as he immediately started drawing. Surprisingly, Sketch was quite fast despite dying. It took him about a minute to finish. Blade would be lying if he said he wasn't impressed with how detailed the drawing of him was. It looked almost realistic. Sketch smiled at the picture before collapsing, only to be caught and laid down by Blade. What is with me today? He wondered. I'm thinking highly of Shida, and now I'm being nice to a hero I killed. I'm going soft. Leaving the hero with his drawings in his arms, Blade walked away. After all, the battle was far from over. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku just finished his tea and moved on to another one when the others came into view. You're up early, Momo complimented. Habit, Izuku admitted. So, are all of you. We couldn't really sleep, Jiro admitted. I doubt anyone in the country has, Nito quipped before looking around. Are the teachers already gone? Yeah. Some have gone to the raid, while others are on patrol here, Izuku answered. Do you think it's already started? Tokoyami asked. It already has, Izuku said. Would you say it's close to finishing? Hitachi asked skeptically. Izuku shot him a tired look. He was going to need a lot more tea. On the contrary, it's only just beginning. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.